Welcome to the Strategic Veteran Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, transition, and growth, giving you the tools and inspiration to navigate life challenges with purpose and grit. Today, we're honored to have a truly remarkable guest whose journey is a testament to perseverance, leadership, and living a life of impact. Our guest, Chad Cooper, embodies what it means to lead a legendary life. A former Marine who came from humble beginnings as the second youngest of six brothers, Chad's time in the Corps shaped his mental fortitude and taught him what it truly means to operate 20 times beyond perceived limits. From sorting out life or death situations like watching a fellow Marine captain pick up a live grenade to navigating the sometimes tumultuous transition to civilian life, Chad has faced defining moments that forged his career and elevated his drive to succeed. And succeed he did, retiring as a corporate executive at Microsoft by the age of 35, becoming an Ironman triathlete, and dedicating over 2 decades to serving others through philanthropy and leadership. Chad is not only an accomplished entrepreneur, but also the author of the life-changing book, Time Isn't the Problem, You Are, where he equips individuals with strategies to align their actions with their values, maximize their time, and build a legacy that matters. His mission, to empower others to embrace discomfort, challenges, limitations, and create meaningful change in the world. He's a man who stood up 3 foundations, been an elected official, and continues to mentor and inspire those around him. Oh, and did we mention he's even connected to one of the world's oldest indigenous Maori tribes? Chad's life is nothing short of extraordinary, and his wealth of experience, military, corporate, and personal, offers invaluable lessons for anyone striving to be their best self. Today, we're diving into Chad's incredible journey, from the lessons he learned in the Marines and how they shaped his resilience, to finding purpose after service, and the strategies for tackling the low societal standards that so often hold us back. He's also sharing practical tools for growing through discomfort and reframing pain into stepping stone for success. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. The perspectives and insights this conversation will bring, so stay tuned. Let's jump in. Chad, welcome to the show, man.
Dude, you make me look like a rock star. Do that again. I love that.
Yeah. We'll just go cruise all the resources I found on the internet. You made yourself look like the rock star, brother. Thank you so much for being here, man. I'm so grateful that you're taking time out of your day to do this and to kind of help me sort out the transition issues and how we can live better lives on the other side of transition as military veterans. So first question for everybody on the show is, where did you grow up and what inspired you to join the United States Marine Corps and eat crayons for a living?
Yeah, so we already got through. You're gonna have to talk slower for me, right? Because being a Marine, we're simple. I had my orange crayons this morning for my vitamin C, so I'm ready to go. So I grew up, and my high school was surrounded by three sides by a cornfield, right? So small rural town. You had to drive like 30 minutes to get to the grocery store. Learn just really, good moral values. And at the same time, I remember the first Black family that moved into our community in the 80s, and they burned a cross on their front yard. And I was like, seriously? It's the 80s. Come on, man. Second family, same thing. Used to hunt on the Grand Dragon, I think is, whoever the head of the KKK was in the entire nation, right? And I grew up with that kind of culture and knew that there was something very short-sighted, a fear-based mentality around that. And then I watched my brothers go into the Army. One became an airborne ranger, and I just looked at it and, I don't know, somewhere around the process of that, Adam, realized freedom isn't free. And I have to do my part. I need to put my hat in the ring, and I figure if I'm gonna do this, in my opinion, in my experience at the time, which was nothing, I went, if I'm gonna have to do the ultimate, and that is go into combat, I want to be trained by the best. And by the advertisements and the cool commercials at the time, the Marine Corps were the hardest. And so I went into that, and I remember going to my mom, and I said, I'm going in the Marines. And she was shocked. Out of 6 boys, like, I was a mama's boy, right? I was her youngest. I was the baby. And she's like, you? They're going to eat you alive, right? You're the mama's boy. But when you're the youngest of 6, and alcoholism, I watched a brother get thrown through a wall, not into. I grew up where you had to fight. If you were caught fighting in the house, you went outside and you had to finish it. And only one came back because that's who won. That's how I was raised, right? It was tough. On the other side of my family, divorced, both remarried, was the feminine and was the female of embracing and using our feelings. So I was raised. I never understood you're the victim of divorced parents. I was like, what are you talking about, victim? I got four parents that I got to choose the best of each quality. And so when I looked at the branches, I went, what's the best of each of these branches? And I figured the Marine Corps was the hardest. My mother's like, why? And it's the same answer that when I went into the Ironman circuit and did Ironmans, I gave the same answer. It's like, because I can. So we think of Rambo, we think of, the manliness, and the reality was I looked at this and said, if I have to go to combat, if I have to serve my country in that way, I want to know, let the other bastard die, I'm going to survive, right? And I need to know the people next to me have my back and that they can count on me because I've been trained sufficiently. And so I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going all in and I have to do it with excellence. And that's really kind of just, I don't know whether I was born that way or being the youngest of them that I kind of looked at that. But I said, if I'm going to do this, I need to know that I'm not going to just kind of make my way through, but I'm going to actually be the best of all of it. And so that's kind of why I went into the Marine Corps. Um, Great experience in some ways, but anybody who's honest and been in the military, it's like 80% boring, raking leaves, painting rocks, 20% balls to the walls. But the character building in it was the moment that moved me from being a boy to a man.
Yeah, it's interesting because we all choose the branch for whatever reason, and you're kind of no different. Like most of the Marines, it's always some commercial or a uniform or that sets this ideology in their head that is the best, right? And I get it, right? Because your uniforms are the best. There's no arguing
The
that. And
uniform
your DNC teams,
yeah.
yeah. So, what ended up being your job in the Marine Corps?
Oh, that's a funny, fascinating story. So when I went in, just because I talked about diversity and racism, and the thing that I was looking for, I found in the Marine Corps, and that was I had guys from urban, suburban, people who could swim, people who couldn't swim. That's kind of important in the Marine Corps. And what I realized was it didn't matter your ethnicity, it didn't matter your economic background, whether you're from the north or south side of the tracks. It didn't matter what your gender or any. It was like, can you get the outcome? We don't give a shit about the activity. Can you accomplish the mission? And it didn't matter what your skin color or what your religion was. Each of you were a brother, right? And so the unique thing about the Marine Corps is the only branch in the world that once a Marine, always a Marine. And that was kind of the few, the proud, the Marines. Yes, we had the coolest uniforms and still are, right? Yes, once a Marine, always a Marine was the biggest factor. And three was it didn't matter where you came from. We're going to teach you how to be brothers in arms and take care of each other. And so in the very beginning, 6 months in, I was Intel Counterintel. Now I had 2010 vision in each eye separate, which was kind of they're like your freak of nature. Having 2020 is in both is not unusual, but it's not normal either. 2010 is twice 2020. In each eye separately, they're like, you need to fly. You need to be a pilot. Well, I did Intel Counterintel, truly an oxymoron. So they call me in 6 months in, and they're like, Cooper, my CEO, he's like, Cooper, why does all your paperwork say that your mother's a Canadian citizen? I'm 19 years old. I'm like, is this a trick question? Are you really that stupid? Because my mom's a Canadian citizen? They're like, don't get smart with me. I'm like, you asked the question. I'm 19. You're the officer. You're supposed to know, right? And they're like, do you realize, how did you get this security clearance? Do you realize that you can't have a direct descendant from a foreign country in this job? I'm like, again, is this a rhetorical question? Of course I don't, dude. Really? So
I'm a brand new Marine. Like, what the fuck do you think I know?
yeah, it's like
Like,
the oxymoron of intelligence, counterintel. You're like, you guys just proved that it's truly an oxymoron. So they booted me out of that, right? Because my mom's a Canadian citizen, or was at the time. She's now an American citizen. And so they put me into infantry mortars. You want to talk about a crap MOS, man. I was 145 pounds carrying around mortar rounds, a mortar plate, and I was a 60 gunner. Dude, I was carrying around probably 165 pounds worth of ammo and a ruck, and I had flat feet. So I had to sign a waiver for flat feet, which meant I can't absorb that weight, and my knees would then fill up with water. And now I'm costing 3 lives, right? Because I'm a casualty, and I got to have 2 people carry me. Became a bit of a problem, and ultimately why I got out of the service. But we were doing cold weather training, extreme weather training in Gaylord, Michigan, Grayling, Michigan, and I got hypothermia. And I'm like, this CO is going to get us killed if we go into combat. I got to get out of here. And so I actually made bets. Nobody had been transferred out of the unit in 4 years. I totally did what was wrong, and I called up my congressman and said, I got to get out of here. This guy's going to kill me. He's a horrible CEO. And I jumped rank, total court martial opportunity, but it worked. I got out of there in 2 weeks. The unit I left the day before I got to combat engineers, they went to Desert Storm, and they saw combat. The unit I went to Desert Storm the day before I got there. And as you know, they don't always send everybody. Somebody's got to maintain the base in homeland, right? And the unit I left a week later was deployed to the Philippines. He got everybody lost in the jungle. They had to drink their own piss out of a canteen. I was like, thank Lord I got out of there. So career limiting move, absolutely. I knew at the time I was not going to be career. And I missed combat by 1 day. Would have done it if I needed to. Thank God I didn't have to, because I know several that have had to do that. And God bless them, because it's a lot of work on the other side to recover from that.
Yeah, you just took me down a little memory lane there, because I was an infantry guy, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Come in straight to the 240. You're going to carry all the spare barrels and ammo, and you're going to be the AG, and you're going to work your way up through the weapons squad, and then eventually, yeah, it's a rough life. I wasn't 145 pounds, and I didn't have the flattest feet, so I didn't have as much difficulty as you do. But it's definitely a culture shock. It's definitely a different life. And I even imagine, somewhat growing up with older brothers and having to survive at least made you competitive in that world. At least kind of you had the mental fortitude to get through what it was going to take to make it through that. Because I've seen a lot of dudes come in that don't have that kind of resilience or that mental preparation, and they break, and then they're gone. And
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you look at my dimensions, very few people know I'm actually the perfect dimensions for a soldier. 5'6", 145 pounds. I can get in a tank. I can get in a foxhole. I can carry weight. And that mental fortitude, I did have more of that than my parents really kind of saw, because of my upbringing and having to, 6 on one side, 6 on the other side of two different families. And I was carrying 145 pounds and all of that gear. And I was the guy, because I can, I'm very unassuming. You do not see me in a crowd. There's nothing about me that goes, oh, that's a threat, which is such a strategic advantage. They look at you and they're like, oh, that's an imposing, ugly motherfucker, and he might mess me up. Okay. No, you're handsome. It's okay. But I was the guy that when big guys like you who had no endurance, you can carry heavy shit short distances. I'm the endurance guy. I was the guy that with that was like, Cooper, grab his ruck too. And there were more times than I can count. And they're just like, how does this little engine keep going? It's the story of the little engine that could. And that mental fortitude was one more step, one more step. When you look at Navy SEAL Bud School, the first activity you have to prove yourself is 1,000 push-ups. And people go, how can you do 1,000? You do 100, you do 100, you do 100, 50, 50, 25, and eventually you get to one more. And all you focus on is the next thing in front of you, one more footstep, and eventually you get to 1,000. And that mental fortitude was something that was reinforced and built in the Marine Corps. And all I had to do was, what was right in front of me? What's the next thing? And I would just do it until I would break. But I would outlast guys that were twice my size. And they're just like, dude, are you stupid? I'm like, I think so, right? I'm too stupid to quit. Or stubborn, I'm not sure.
I mean, there's some physiology involved too, right? At 6'3", 220 pounds, my muscles use a lot more oxygen to move me the same distance that your body uses to move you the exact same distance. I have a really good friend, very good mentor of mine from the Army, a lot like you, very unsuspecting guy. He's the fucking Energizer Bunny. I've watched this dude break down guys bigger than me, stronger than me, in the combatives, rolling on the mat, and he just hangs on and he just wears you out. And then he's like, it's go time, and then just embarrasses you. So, I get exactly what you're saying. I'm reading Greg Horowitz's new book, Nemesis. It's the Orphan X series, and Evan Smock is the main character. And that's exactly how they describe him: not too handsome, not too tall, not too muscular, very unsuspecting because he's this, covert dude that they've trained or whatever. And you're absolutely right. There's something to all of that. I want to talk about, I really just want to give you the floor. I mentioned in your intro, you watched an unsuspecting captain be a moron and pick up a live grenade. I'm sure that didn't end well for him. That's probably something that stuck with you throughout your career. But really what I want to get down to is, what are the things that you latched onto, that you developed in the Marine Corps, that you would lean on moving into a very successful post-military career? Because by all means, man, being a published author, all these foundations you've done, retiring at Microsoft at 35 years old. I mean, shit, I was still in the Army at 30. So, it's like I didn't have a shot at retiring at 35 from any kind of corporation. But I'm willing to bet a lot of those skills you learn in the Marine Corps, you figured out how to translate and do well in corporate life. And that's one of the big barriers I see in transition after talking to over 100 veterans on this show, the struggles that they're going through in transition, analyzing the TAP process and all of that, hearing the stories of what they're going through these days, and understanding all of that, is there's a big breakdown in what we're actually capable of and how we translate that into the corporate world. So talk about some of those things that you carried with you into the corporate world from the Marine Corps, and then we'll move into kind of the issues you faced in your transition and how you applied all of these things to come out the other side.
Sure. So let's see if I can just keep it in three simple principles to break it down. One is, in the Marine Corps, I remember I was in boot camp and I got the flu, and it was coming out both ends, right? And the Marine Corps had a really interesting way of helping you overcome your illness. And they just said, drop in the barracks, drop in and start doing push-ups. And average person, a healthy person, maybe 5 minutes, they can do push-ups kind of thing, right? To go beyond 3 to 5 minutes is unusual for most people. I had the flu, and somebody had a watch, because we weren't allowed to have any of that stuff in boot camp. And somebody was recording how long I was doing push-ups. I don't know if it was drill instructor or whatever. I did push-ups for 45 minutes, okay, while I was sick.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Right? So when we removed the concept of time, and it's ironic that I wrote a book about time management, right? When we remove the concept of time and we just focus on one more, being present, not living in the past, not living in the future, right? But we're present to just focus on doing push-ups. What we can do, as Mark Devine, former Navy SEAL commander, said, is we are capable of 20 times more than our mind will allow us to believe. And our mind and that mental fortitude says, ouch, pain, let go, back off. But the body, if we understand our relationship between pain and suffering, it is empowering. Pain is a necessary ingredient to accomplish anything meaningful in life. Look, you want to make a great cookie recipe, you have to have salt. It's not going to turn out well if you don't have salt in that cookie. We only think about the large portions of that atom, right? How much flour, how much sugar, because it's the largest ratio. But just a little bit of salt brings out the best of a cookie. Pain is one of those ingredients, just the right ratio. So we have to accept, and in our society today, we are a society of leisure craving rest because we don't embrace pain. And I remember my drill instructors, I remember in the military, one of them was like, pain is a megaphone to tell you you're still alive. It is telling you something. And we have created a society that says, oh, all of these emotions, happy, joy, and prosperity, all of those post on social media and say you're okay, even when you're not. But all of these darker emotions, you got to bury those down. And a lot of soldiers have served and been shamed into keeping those darker emotions quiet. And we really need to sit with them and be
Right
able to
here.
say, you know what, today I'm okay not being okay, right? And if we can sit with those darker emotions, we can realize that there's a gift in pain. It's telling you you're still alive. It's telling you to pay attention and stop doing something or to start doing something, right? There's a gift in pain. And if we leverage it, that's how we grow the muscle. That's how we grow our comfort zone. And so I learned that if we're willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable, we can accomplish great things over time. Suffering is completely different. Suffering are the stories about the pain. So acknowledge that pain is a necessary ingredient. Drop the story. Suffering is where we tell the stories about the pain. Drop the stories, right? Or at least give it empowering stories. And so I learned that through the first part of that. The second, I think, is the greatest challenge in our society is knowledge is plentiful. We're in the information age. Leveraging that knowledge is completely different. We are churning derelicts out of universities today, knowledgeable derelicts. We have to be able to leverage that power of knowledge. And so I learned in that when I got out of the Marine Corps, there were certain characteristics, certain traits that worked well and served me in values in the Marine Corps that didn't translate into civilian life. And so our greatest opportunity today is to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. We have to be willing to let go of stuff that doesn't work in different environments, different communities, military versus civilian world. And so I learned, keep the stuff that translates, let go of the crap that doesn't, right? Know your environment. We know in military, adapt to overcome. It's sensory acuity, it's environmental acuity, it's intelligence, intellectual, awareness. We have to be willing to let go of crap that's not serving us, let go of stories that are not empowering us in order to be able to move forward. That means friends, that means, career, certain things so that we can move forward. And so we have two questions we have to ask of ourselves in life. Where am I going and who's coming with me? And if we ask that in the wrong order, we are going to screw ourselves. Jesus did not say, hey, who's coming with me? Where are we going? It wasn't a popular vote. It wasn't a democratic opportunity. He said, here's where I'm going. Drop your nets. Follow me. And we have that opportunity. The military says, here's where we're going. You don't get a vote. You gave up your constitutional rights. And you don't get a choice. You're coming with, right? But in civilian life, we have to take that responsibility, right? We have to own the responsibility that we're accountable and ask ourselves, where am I going and who's coming with me? And if people are not saying, I'm coming, you move forward, you move on. It breaks our heart with some of them, but that's what we have to do. And then the third piece in that is really the diversity piece, right? My foundation works around the world. I am a member of the oldest indigenous tribe in New Zealand called the White Taha. I have been working to expand into Africa with the foundation, been working for 20 years in Central America. I have a mixed race of lineage in me from, all kinds of different Caucasian to African American to whatever. And I realized along the way through my high school French teacher, diversity is a strength. If we suspend judgment, right? If we suspend our fear about what we don't know and we get curious and seek understanding, what we understand is diversity is a strength. And so I learned to embrace differences and get curious and adopt the things that serve me, let go of the crap that doesn't.
Man, I love everything that you just said, particularly about pain. I've got a body riddled with injuries from, almost 5 years in combat, all that good stuff, 11 surgeries. I just got a result of an MRI this morning. It says I have a tear in my right labrum in my hip. Like, that's a great thing that I want to have to deal with also. But, there's that physical pain, that aching, that's just like hard for you to get out of bed and move every day. And then there's, that uncomfortable pain that you were talking about, where we as a society have really kind of turn the table on pain, if you will. Like, we're a society that seeks comfort, ultimate comfort, and we'll do anything to get it. And I think that's kind of the lesson there, right? Like, at least in the year that I've been building this podcast and doing everything in the transition space, what I've learned is the consistency and the pain of showing up every single day pays off way down the road. So learning how to delay your gratification is painful. It's a sacrifice. Like, it sucks that, I've structured my finances so that I only have one vehicle. We're a one vehicle household. And now I have to make life painful for myself to work my schedule around when my wife's not at work or doing something else and I need the car. And like, the shit's painful. It sucks. But like, I've also, structured my life in a way that I can pursue this indefinitely, because this is what fills my cup up. This is what makes me truly happy. And I think that's a really, really good lesson that we're missing here through, like you said, social media and all of this stuff. Everywhere you look, I just discovered a couple of weeks ago, all these Instagram influencers are lying to all of us. Most of you probably already knew this. I'm clueless because I don't like social media or to spend a bunch of time on social media. I understand it's relevant for growing a personal brand. But Instagram influencers can go to LA, and for $1,500 an hour, they can rent out a model of a private jet interior to take all the photos and videos that they want. And like, this is fucking ridiculous, dude. We're putting on this show, which is now kind of just spreading through the hive mind that is now society. And we're putting up like these false notions that like, this is where you can get to, and like all of this, like without work, like part of why I started doing what I'm doing is because I didn't want to be in corporate America anymore. It's not for me. That's a box that I don't fit in. I wanted to make my own way and create my own wealth and my own source of income and be my own boss and control my time. And in that, right, like, it takes time. It's a grind. You like, there's no shortcut, right? The shortcut is doing the work, learning the lessons, going through all of that pain that you talked about. And I started this because I paid for courses to get into somebody's funnel where they told me the secret to making it. And really what it was just a way for me to get into their funnel, go through the bullshit that they had, which is all surface level shit that I knew anyway. And then they want another $1,000 to get, quote unquote, the secret, right? So they're just moving me further down their funnel and collecting more money from me. And that's not necessary, because like you said, we live in the information age, particularly with AI and the cool shit that AI can do right now. Like, there are so much potential out there for you as an individual to create so many things that weren't possible maybe even a year ago with the advent of AI. Like, just do the work, do the research, put your thinking cap on, think critically about the sources of information that you're reading. I don't know, Google's got a thing called deep research right now. It's really awesome. It shortcuts research so much. Like, if you know about these tools, you can go and use these things and create this life for yourself. You just have to get out of your own way and endure a little pain and consistency to do it. So I'm glad you talk about all this stuff. And I want to move into your transition, because I think your transition was probably a little unique. You had signed for 6 years with the Marine Corps, and you were in the Clinton era, and then they did the drawdown, right? And so you got out at 3 years. Talk us through that decision, and talk us through the challenges that you weren't prepared for, that you were going to face in the transition. Because after all, that's what this show is about, is showing who you are as a person, what you've accomplished, telling your transition story, and then kind of bringing all of that together to show veterans and create hope for people like me, who just 18 months ago was 100 pounds overweight, didn't have purpose, couldn't figure out what the fuck I was here for at all, and just miserable. Like, I want you to put information out that can live on the internet for a veteran who was me 18 months ago, scrolling endlessly, to just give hope. You know what I mean? Like, you're not alone in what you're feeling. You're not alone in these challenges that you go through. So can you talk about kind of your whole transition and the challenges you didn't know you were going to have to face, and how they could have better prepared you to get out?
Yeah, great question. Let me begin with that, Adam, with comparison is a thief of joy.
Oh, it's my favorite quote. It's my favorite quote.
So we're trained and indoctrinated as soldiers to suffer in silence. And it is costing so many veterans' lives, right? We don't have to. It's not a badge of honor. Just like saying, oh, you only work 60 hours, I work 80, as if you're winning, because you're killing yourself through a career that nobody gives a crap about later. And so there's a couple of like, if you hear nothing else in this, like, takeaways. One, Find people that are smarter, more accomplished, and more successful than you. How you define success is not just by material attainment. It's not by the size of your paycheck or the title on your desk, okay? But find people that you aspire to become like and ask them to mentor you. You need a mentor, you need a coach, okay? The second then is, if you say you're a leader or you want to really be next level, go and serve others. You have to contribute beyond yourself. So I go down to Guatemala. In fact, I'm going down next month. I take teams for the last 20 years building houses for widowed women with children. I get deathly sick every single time, okay? I've now learned how to take antibiotics to help me with that, but I get sick and people are like, dude, it's so uncomfortable. It's so miserable. Why do you do it? I said, gratitude. It's a reminder of how blessed and how wealthy I am, right? When you go down to people who have nothing, you stop bitching about what you don't have, right? Comparison's the thief of joy. We make the rules so bloody hard to win, right? Oh, I have to have the right, how many bank accounts do I have? Do I have a checking and a savings? Do I have retirement? Do I have stocks? What zip code do I live in? What's the badge on the hood of my vehicle? What's the emblem on my wallet or purse, right? We make the rules so bloody hard. Go to the most poor parts of the world and they're happy because they have one meal today. They make the rules easy to win. Whoever has the least amount of rules wins, right? And so we have to get beyond the indoctrinated BS, as you're talking about, the person that's on a fake airplane, and realize, I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl, but the advertisements, I was like, holy crap. Corporate world has already caught on to patriotism in America sells, right? They were bitching and whining about this for 4 years under the Biden administration. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about corporate going, this is what's going to move the needle. We need to sell more product, and all of this LGBT stuff is out. America is in. We're selling America. Look at how patriotic the commercials were. And
it's so blatant. You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it.
But people are like, oh my gosh, Harrison Ford's doing a Jeep commercial. People, it's called acting. They don't have to believe in it. They just are getting paid to act. Of course, social media is full of BS. So getting out of the service, I had mentors, and my CEO calls me in one day and goes, Cooper, you know what your problem is? I said, just one, sir. He goes, no, but that's number two. He goes, you're too smart. You need to go and be an officer. He goes, no, check that. You're too smart for being an officer. People are here because they have no other choice. You do. Get the hell out of here. Go to college and move on with your life. Roger that, sir. I'm out. Clinton was offering early outs. I played the game. I got out. I went to university. If I compare myself to somebody who served 4 years, 6 years, 30 years, or whatever, 20 years, somebody who was combat and I'm not, that is robbing me of, I served, I did my part. Thank goodness I didn't have to do the things that others did. I'm out, right? So I was willing to put it on the line. Thank goodness I didn't get called to have to do that. I make no apologies for that, but I do not compare myself to be equal to somebody who actually had to, experience some horrific things, right? I
want to ask you real quick, when that commanding officer said that to you, what was your perspective of yourself at the time? Because I know for me, I had a bunch of childhood trauma. I grew up a specific way that contributed to my perception of myself. So it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s in college in a psychology course being asked to compose a paper on PTSD in a time perspective, some Philip Zimbardo philosophies. And I have a world-renowned psychologist for a teacher who's a research psychologist telling me that I should do this, cluing me into I'm a lot smarter than I'm even giving myself credit for. So I really relate to what you're being told by your CEO. You're too smart to be here. This is for people who don't have any other choice. And I genuinely believe that's why I joined the Army. I grew up in rural Indiana, like you said, surrounded on three sides by cornfields. Our fucking practice football field was a cornfield. Like there was no, you know what I mean? So for me, it was either work on generational family-owned farms or work for the generational family-owned construction companies or do a bunch of meth, or teach in the local high school. That's pretty much the options. In fact, that's what most of the people I graduated with are still doing. They're a part of the local economy. There's no opportunity to be an entrepreneur because they don't teach you about that. So for me, it was the way. I didn't have any other choice. So I'm just curious, like, what was your perspective of yourself at the time, and how did that impact you when he told you that? Because that's not something that we hear as human beings often, at least where I grew up and in my life.
Yeah, and so I would say in that, one of the things that I've come to realize is God, whatever you want to call the bigger, I have a deeply profound relationship beyond pastors of what God is. Okay.
Same.
And
I see them all on your
I'm not
wrist. Like
sending the one-way
it's not an
text.
accident.
Yeah, I'm not just sending a prayer. I'm in deep shit. Please bail me out. I promise I won't do this. And as soon as you bail me out, I'm going to do it again anyway. Right? It's like he and I have conversations. And in that conversation, I received a download that he said, the greatest gift I ever gave you is love. And we hear that all the time. The second greatest gift he gave us is choice. Choose wisely. Choose not to compare yourself to others. Choose to realize you have choice. Get the hell out, go live and serve the gifts that I was given, right? So the things that I've accomplished, Adam, I don't take credit for. I was gifted these abilities and the courage to choose to embrace them and exercise those gifts is where that comes from, right? I
I
don't
love
take
that.
credit for that. I only take credit for having the balls or the courage to express and live out those gifts. Okay. So I was given a choice. Chad, you don't have to do this anymore. Thank you for your service. Go serve your country in other ways. So I did. I went and got my degree. I did, and I went and served as an elected official, had to go through elections and all that for 10 years, right? And in that time, that's where I learned drop the crap that doesn't serve me from the military, embrace what the community needs as a civilian, and grow those skills. And in that, I had to face you can make all the right decisions, Adam, and somebody's going to be pissed off. You serve the majority, and the minority are going to be the loudest voice. Let me tell you, when you do things right, the people, you don't call up and say, hey, Chad, I just want you to know, man, you're killing it. You are doing such a great job for our state and our community. Well done. No, they are not going to do that. You are not going to get the
No, that
accolades
doesn't.
for doing the right things, right? When you do
Right.
something they don't like, they are absolutely going to tell you you're the biggest turd on the planet. And so I had to get centered and I had to get good. My wife at the time said, this was about 2 years in. And I came home at like 11 o'clock at night after everything was over. And and I just would verbally vomit all over her, these dumb some bitches, these citizens don't know and she's like, stop. You either have to learn how to compartmentalize this and leave this at the dais or resign, but you can't bring this toxic behavior into our home anymore. And as hard as that lesson was, it was a painful, bitter pill. She was right. And so I had to learn where my center was, and that was between me and the man above, right? It was not I'm going to be enough, I'm going to be complete when people approve of me. Because somebody, when you have the audacity to lean into your pain, somebody's going to judge you. Somebody's going to say, I'm jealous or you're an idiot. And guess what? I'm an idiot, right? I go, help me learn. Suspend my understanding and allow me to be a student. And so in that, I realized that my self-esteem, my self-worth was between me and the man above, and that my standards had to be way higher than society's. So I, like you, at 43 years old, I was with Tony Robbins' organization, and I was asked to bring together we really want to take the coaches to another level. We need to find an event that really pushes their limits, something they've never done before. And I said, okay, if you want to do that, you have to tie it to something bigger than themselves. Because when people start experiencing pain, they'll defend, deflect, and deny, find ways to get out of it. I said, so we have to tie it to a charity that they can't back out of. Somebody's counting on them, right? That's how you get people to do amazing things, is something bigger than yourself. And so we did. And so at 43 years old, we decided we were going to go through a Navy SEAL Bud School at 43. Okay. 87% dropout rate for 18-year-olds. 43, no problem. I had 33 major sponsors on the Ironman circuit. And I was like, guys, I mean, you're not asking me to go get you a cup of Starbucks coffee. This is a big ask. I know what my medal's worth. I was Regimental Marine of the Year. I was a major sponsored Ironman triathlete. I know what I'm capable of. I don't need this. But they needed a leader. They needed two co-leaders to do this. So we did. Well, I tore my hip ligament off the bone. And so I was out, but I committed to taking the rest of these guys through it. And again, 80% dropped, 20% completed it. But the thing in that is that, remember that unlearning piece? I had to check what I knew about medicine and recovery. And I went through physical therapy. I did all those things. I later then got another injury with my hip and got a hip replacement. I'm competing with Evel Knievel on the number of injuries. Snapped my Achilles 100% at the bone. Meniscus. I just got done with a double hernia repair after 34 years prior in the Marine Corps doing. I've had so many injuries. I'm living proof you can put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But here's the piece that's missing in medicine today in the Western world. It's called the autonomic nervous system. And I'm going somewhere with this, Adam. And that is the ability to unlearn and relearn. You can go have surgery. You can go do therapy with a counselor, and I highly recommend it. I have a degree in psychology, fully endorse counseling, right? You can do physical therapy. You can do all of it. But there's a book called The Body Remembers, or Body Keeps Score.
The Body Keeps the Score. It's a great book.
Body Keeps Score. About 80% accurate, 20% is okay. And it says this: all our trauma, all of that crap that we served in the military that we're told to keep quiet, to keep down because you're not a man if you go get help, is BS. It's all stored in the autonomic nervous system from when you're an infant to now. And you can do all of the psychological work, you can do all the physical repair, but until you release it out of the autonomic nervous system, the ANS, you will hold on to that trauma. And that's what's causing all the degradation in your muscle system, right? And so I went through what is the most successful treatment for combat veterans with PTSD. It is a courageous choice to go do this, and I highly recommend it for people who truly are committed to overcoming their trauma and hurt. It's called MDMA, okay? Then third stage trials, do not go do the party groupie thing. Go do it in the clinical, and the proper way to do that is you have therapy on the front end, you do the treatment, and then you have therapy and journaling on the back end to release the trauma. And it was a game changer for me. I was like, I don't know why I'm angry. And I found out why. And I dissolved it. Right? It just dissolved. And
let's dive into this, Chad, because I didn't. That's what changed my life. Plant medicine changed my life as well. It was ayahuasca that changed my life. In fact, I now have a direct line to a retreat in Peru. This is done extremely professional. The owners were they facilitated my ayahuasca journey. So I've got a cohort going in July to Peru. And you're absolutely right, man. I really genuinely believe that's what ayahuasca did. It reset all of that trauma stored in the ANS for me. And it's funny that you're talking about this, because this has been coming up a lot for me lately. There's so much to unpack from an experience like that. I'm sure you can relate with the MDMA. You talk about therapy on the front and backside of MDMA. It's the same thing with ayahuasca. It's just labeled differently. Like, so we call it integration, right? Psychedelic integration coaching. And you get a coach and for 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after. And it's the best thing ever, because it helps you unpack some of this stuff. Because I promise you, what you go and experience with, now I've never done MDMA, but I'm almost 100% certain it's about the same. You're going to have some wild shit come up when you go do these things, and you're not going to know how to make sense of it. And it's what a coach is there to do, to really meet you where you're at and just kind of work through what you're going through with you. So I'm so glad you bring this up, because it was life-changing for me. I lost 100 pounds. I've built everything I've had on the other side of this. I now know how to love and respect myself. I had zero love or respect for myself, which to me is probably the most detrimental thing I could have been doing for myself in my life. It was literally killing me. And now on the other side, I approach myself with grace and gratitude and abundance, and I actually love myself. And I'm learning how to be proud of myself, which is something I've never done in my entire life. You know, it's really cool what that stuff unlocks for you. And I'm so glad you had a similar experience, because I genuinely believe, while I don't think psychedelics is for everybody, I definitely think the world would be a much better place if we were using this as a healing modality like it actually is, instead of Schedule Oneing this shit and saying it's bad. My opinion on that is big pharma, big food, they have kept these secrets from us because they don't make fucking money. And we know that's probably true,
Well,
right?
it's exactly. Yeah, and those are symptomatic. This goes to root cure, right? So there's a couple things I want to begin with on that. And the first is trust but verify. This is an old Russian proverb that Ronald Reagan leveraged and used, right? So for the veterans that are out there, regardless of what way you served, you served. You do not have to suffer in silence. And trust, just like you were saying, there's a lot of manipulative salesmen on social media today. Find somebody with a servant leadership heart, right? Trust that they have good intention, but it's your responsibility alone to verify that they are acting with integrity, sound judgment, and that it's applicable for you. So find a fireside group of men that you can come around, say, take off my armor, let me be vulnerable, and take guard while I do this work, while I heal what everybody is hiding. Okay. Why did I go in the military? Part of that was, from the very beginning, was to see, am I enough? Right? One of six, the youngest, I wanted to see, what am I capable of? Am I enough? I had something to prove. On the other side of that, answered some of it, right? But I grew up with childhood sexual molestation by my babysitter. Alcoholism was rampant. I mean, you name loss of a child. I mean, you name it. I've seen some horrific things. Don't compare it to the thief of joy, right? Take responsibility. So trust but verify. Find a group of people that you can trust in confidence that they will be there and walk you through the process. One of the challenges I have with ketamine is really powerful, but they're selling it like it's Botox of, oh, we got a dental treatment, come in and get ketamine. It's like, where is the responsibility on either side of that treatment? It's not the treatment, it's the work between the treatment that heals.
100%. Yes.
So
yes.
When we look at ayahuasca, ketamine, MDMA, they're very different psychedelics, okay? The unique thing about MDMA, it was invented in 1939 in Germany. You know your history, not a great time for Germany, okay? And it has been used in psychology work in clinical therapy since 1939. It was banned as a class 3 drug under the Reagan administration because it became it became ecstasy in Mali, right? So it was used for illicit purposes. They banned it instead of allowing it to say, we're going to control this and it's going to be used responsibly. So it's not a party, this is clinical. The unique thing about MDMA is it locks out your ego and it says, we're going to relive your trauma from a third-party participant, from a very gentle hand of you observing, you're not living it firsthand experience again. And the first time I did it, the first scene, I get done, and it was like, the paddles that they use for CPR, right? That it was like I have a tree when I lived in Michigan in my house called the catalpa tree. And it was this like 40-foot massive tree. And in 2 minutes, it sends a signal in the fall to drop all the leaves at once. Imagine 40 feet of leaves just going, boom. That's what MDMA does. It prevents the ego from translating and creating hallucinations. When you look at ayahuasca, powerful, but it can provide hallucinations. Okay, LSD can do the same thing. Acid can do the same thing. Ketamine, not so much. But MDMA, they've proven, does not create hallucinations because the ego is locked out. So what it is truth, right? Handling the truth, right? In imprisonment is keeping you numb. Truth will set you free, but not before it pisses you off. Okay? So when you're doing this, are you ready to face truth? That's where you need the help on both sides. Yeah. But this is saving so many veterans' lives to learn to love themselves, to learn that they did nothing wrong, to learn that they serve their country from a place of honesty and integrity and something bigger than them. And there's help for them. That's what it's done for me. is to help me realize less about, the grenade and watching a captain turn into red vapor mist and any trauma in the military, because I really didn't experience much of that. And I'm good with, like, I have a very different view on life and death from more of a Central American, South America, of death is not something to fear. But it
No.
really allowed me to move from fighting for peace to be peace.
Yeah.
Like,
I love
fighting
that,
for
man.
peace is like yelling for silence. It doesn't get you the result that you want. And it
Yeah.
allowed me to find peace. And as the Buddha said, you can't give what you first don't possess within yourself. We have to possess that, find that love and possess it within ourselves in order to be able to give it away.
So good, man. So good. One of the issues that I've discovered that veterans struggle with through transition, and something that I read in, I think, one of your Medium articles while you were at Microsoft, was you said that whenever you got the chance, you were always around Bill Gates trying to absorb information from him. And so, one of the challenges that we particularly the enlisted guys I see face is the establishment of a network before you get out, and how actually important that is to everything that you do in life. So, kind of my question in that is, you didn't just get hired at Microsoft and have access to Bill Gates. So how did you network your way into being able to be around him and learn from him? Because, we already talked about, asking the question, this is where I'm going, who's coming with me, right? So, in that, there's some element of surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, who are further ahead in their journey than you are. Because I generally don't necessarily, obviously we can measure intelligence and we can think that, people are smarter than us all the time. I think that's doing ourselves a disservice, because you already planted the seed that you're not intelligent enough. So I don't like to refer to them as smarter than me, just further ahead on their journey. But how did you find yourself in that position? And any tips for those veterans that are getting out who are struggling? Because I hear it all the time. I somehow am gifted at networking. It's been incredible. It's awesome. And I'm building a solid network of relationships, not just collecting people's phone numbers or business cards, right? Like I just don't find it that hard. And I think for me, why I don't find it that hard is because I just said, fuck this. I'm going to get out of my way. I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm just going to ask these people, like, hey, I think what you're doing is really cool. Would you mind, a 30-minute conversation so I can learn more or learn something from you? In that, also, I take a lot of meetings. I talk to a lot of people. People tell me that that's to my own detriment. I don't care. I just look at people, every single person, the person who, maybe doesn't appear to have anything to contribute to me. I look at every single person as, man, this person has a treasure trove of knowledge and I can learn something from them if I just listen actively to them. So how would you tell veterans to handle, finding themselves, there's doors that they want to walk through. Everybody has doors that they want to walk through. How would you recommend them opening those doors?
Two things in that, Adam. One is, you said something really important in there, I think, just as a throwaway statement, in that you said you reach out to people that have nothing to offer you, right? Are we really so selfish today that we don't see the value of serving others, expecting nothing in return immediately or ever, right? Relationships have to be reciprocated. And we have created a society of, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? What am I going to get? Stop being so damn selfish and go be selfless, okay? When you're angry, when you are down and depressed, right? What is depression? It's a denial of our emotions, those darker emotions. If we want to get out of depression, go serve others, and you'll realize you have it way better than somebody else today. I just expect everybody has one major thing going on in their life at any given moment. Having empathy and compassion, having a relationship as opposed to a transaction, is what actually navigates the road and paves it in front of us, right? So when I look at that, let me be clear. I was smart enough. There was a very different time at Microsoft where your voice was heard. People, they drew from the resources of people's inventive behavior, contributing. It was very collaborative. It was incredibly hard to get into the company. And you could sign in as anybody. I could sign in as Bill Gates and nobody would know that I'm not really Bill Gates. So proximity was really less about the barriers and moats that we see today in the corporate world that's intentionally placed there. But I was smart enough to go, I'm not naive enough to think this guy is the richest man, the most powerful man in the world because he's nice. I watched friends get their butt handed to them and come out in tears from boardroom meetings. So I learned from them. What did Bill teach you? What did Bill teach you not to do? What did he teach you to do? And you had to be very prepared if you went in front of that guy, because he had no patience for anything less than amazing, right? So proximity, what I learned in that from George Bernard Shaw, and I don't know if we're born this way or we just learn it early in infancy, but we're one of two questions in life. And George Bernard Shaw said it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Bobby Kennedy Sr. popularized it, and George Bernard Shaw said, some people see things as they are and ask why. Others dream of things that have never been and ask why not. We're either a why or a why not person. I'm a why not. And a why not person doesn't let fear get in the way of saying, maybe I'm just too stupid to know I shouldn't ask. But I'm the guy, I'm convinced I'm the slowest student in the classroom. I'm the kid on the short bus coming into school, right? I'm like, I don't get it. But I have the courage, again, back to choice. I choose to allow myself to be stupid, to suspend being the teacher and be the student and say, I have a question. And I take the shot. And so I just go, I'm going to ask, can you mentor me? Can I hang around you? Can you teach me something? Can you pour into me? And you'd be shocked at how many high performers go, man, I've been dying to share this with somebody. I've been dying to hand this knowledge to somebody younger. And I learned that when I was in, let me give you a secondary story there. When I became an elected official, the most respected man in the community was a man named Jim Winchell. Jim said, I want to have breakfast with you. It's like, Jim's going to have breakfast with me? Cool. Sixth generation of the community, family name was very well respected and very well known. My family, right? So I knew Jim would know who I was based on my family name. So I have breakfast and he says, I'd like to mentor you. You would be amazed at how many people are dying to pour into others. Go ask. And so I did. I said, yes. No questions asked. Tell me. He's like, when the press call, never give them an answer because they're looking for the sensationalized reaction. Tell them you're going into a meeting and you'll get back to them. They will move on to somebody else because they're not going to catch you off guard. It's like great sage advice. Works in the corporate world. Hey, Chad, what's your opinion? Oh, I'm just going into a meeting. Let me think about it and get back to you, right? Slow things down. So when Jim died, the mayor at the time of the community came up and said, Chad, did you ever wonder why Jim asked to mentor you? I was like, it's me, of course. I was like, no, I never understood why. And he goes, because when he was your age, an older senior gentleman asked to mentor him. And Jim wanted to pay that forward. That man that mentored Jim was your grandfather.
Oh, that's awesome.
It chokes me up. Yeah. So my grandfather chose to sacrifice and pour into somebody else that chose to pay that forward and serve me. That's what it's about. That's how relationships should work, right? It wasn't a transaction. It was a sacrifice for him to say, I'm going to carry this forward and teach this moral character to the next generation. That is our turn. This is our time to serve and stop complaining about these other generations and help them because they are starving and hungry to learn from your mistakes, to learn from your successes. Give to them.
I love that so much, man. And as we come to the close here, I'm going to give you a second here in just a minute to tell everybody how they can reach out to you and find you, and you'll follow the work that you're doing, get involved, whatever. But for me, this is a super powerful episode. And my biggest takeaway is really, like, stop being afraid to ask, stop getting in your own way, and just do the thing. Like really find something that's in service of others, and you can't go wrong. And that's kind of what I'm experiencing too as I grow here, right? I didn't have a clue. It took me 8.5 years in an ayahuasca adventure to figure out, what direction I was supposed to be going in life. And immediately after the ayahuasca thing, I still can't really explain it. It's not like I had an idea pop into my head. It was just like, I'm going to take massive action and see where everything goes. And, what you just said about people being hungry to mentor you, to not have you make the same mistakes that they made. It's so true because it's been my experience. In fact, it's so true that I've largely had to learn how to filter, okay, who is worth working with and who is not, because now you're going to start getting conflicting information and it's going to confuse you even more. And it's really, it's a fine line that you have to walk, because there's so many people willing to mentor you out there and educate you and get you to where you're going. But there's also, just different ways to get there. And so you may have one mentor over here who's telling you to do one thing, and then another mentor over here who's telling you to do absolutely the opposite thing. And then it creates this like confusion point where you don't act anymore. So, it's a good problem to have. I'm not complaining about that problem. I'm just saying, those are the kind of problems that I would rather face than the problem of like, I can't find a motherfucker to mentor me and learn this stuff. But, I'd rather have to choose, what mentor I'm going to listen to based on my own core beliefs, values, and passions. And if I think that his way or her way or whatever is better, or, going to get me there in a way that I agree with versus, the other mentor or whatever. So it's a great problem to have. And that's the big takeaway for me from this conversation with you is serve others. Just find something that allows you to serve others, because man, life gets so much better when you're doing something in service of others. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. I know that it sounds like, well, why in the fuck would I give up my time to go serve others? And it's like, I can't give you the feeling that you get when somebody else that you've helped reaches out to you and says, hey man, this was really awesome advice. And I was able to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C in the 2 weeks since we last met. Thank you for all the information. You really unlocked a lot of things for me. That's the coolest thing in the world. It's the greatest feeling ever. And so that's my takeaway from this. I hope that's what you intended for people to take away, was to just serve others. Because I think you're a walking example of this. Your foundation's all over the world, in New Zealand, part of the tribe, getting into Central and South America, Africa. It's like, you've done the thing, man. You've built this thing that just, its mission is to serve others. And I think that's so commendable.
It's not easy, right? So I tell people, it's a sacrifice that is unacknowledged most of the time. And there's scripture that talks about that can address that. But you made a really important statement, and that is, how do you find the right mentor, and how do mentors get created? So I want to lead people with direction and understanding of how to do that. The first is to understand that leaders are not born, but made. And how did I become a leader? By learning. And so find somebody that's not going to come in over top of you. There's a lot of people out there saying they're a leader, and they come over top of people and dictate and oppress others. Instead, I would say I look to who the real leaders are, and every one of them are people that come alongside you. Okay? They don't come in and say, here's how to do it and give you all the answers. They come alongside and say, let's look for the answers together, right? That was the model that Jesus used. That's the model that Gandhi used. It's Nelson Mandela. Real mentors, real leaders come alongside, and they don't come over saying I'm better than or I'm superior. They come alongside and say, let me teach you how to build that fishing pole and how to fish for yourself, so you don't have to rely on other people providing those fish, okay? That affords people the opportunity to say, I'm not a leader yet. How do I do it? It's an endurance race. It's not a sprint. You learn how to lead by serving and learning success and mistake along the way. So if you want to know leadership, go volunteer, okay? That's how you build leadership, okay? You don't wait till you have all the skills. You learn along the way. For those looking for a mentor, look for somebody that will come alongside of you and hold your hand and not give you all the answers, but teach you how to get resourceful to find them, okay? And then lastly, how do you know the wolf from sheep clothing? That's an epidemic problem that we have lost the template to find and spot. There's a wolf, right, among the sheep. It's very simple. Falsehood is not the opposite of truth. It's the absence. Let me say it again. Falsehood is not the opposite of truth. It's the absence. So all you have to do is if somebody is speaking, listen to this, play this back, and ask yourself, was there any absence of truth? Then it's false. That's how you spot the wolf. Is if there's falsehood, is there an absence of truth? That's a wolf. Okay. That's how you sort through social media. That's how you sort through the salesman versus the servant leader. Okay. That's how you find your mentor.
Oh man, so good. Chad, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, follow the work that you're doing, and get involved. I think it's important that people know this incredible work that you're doing with your foundations and the book and everything else. So let's point people in the right direction here, brother.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I keep it really simple, Adam. Just go to chadecooper.com, and here's what we're doing. So I am now empty nester coming out of retirement. I've tried it. I've never succeeded in retirement. I'm not a retirement kind of guy. Okay. So I have been building a library collection of content that what we're going to do is we're breaking the paradigm of all of these high ticket sales. Oh, you want to self-help? You want access to these people? It's 30,000. It's 50,000. We are building a library for $3 a month to give you the entire content so that people in developing parts of the world, as well as developed, can actually have access and transform their lives. So we're in the process of creating it, but just go to my website, chadecooper.com. You'll find some free books. If you want coaching, I've got room for a couple of coaches. Good ain't cheap. Cheap ain't good. So don't think that I'm like a $25 an hour coach. Okay. So that's for the people who are truly committed. And then we're going to be bringing out more products in the next year to be able to serve people at a price point that people go, you're a moron for releasing it at this price. But our commitment is to create transformation for all the world, not just for the elite privileged.
I'm so happy to know that. And I'm so grateful that somebody like you is doing that, because it's so necessary. I mean, the opportunities that are out there right now, if we just put in a little work and we understand how to get information, it's insane. And I'm so excited to see how many millionaires and billionaires are going to be created with just the unprecedented access to information, tools. I taught myself HTML in a day. I have zero coding experience, and I used AI to teach myself HTML because I was sick of ConvertKit's email templates and how you don't have control over them. So I just built my own, and it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought. And in fact, it was a fun process to learn. So I'm glad you're doing this, man. Thank you so much for.
Here's my question or my request for the audience. Veterans have a very unique perspective. Whether you are still hurting and recovering, or whether you have and you're leading, whatever that is, send an email. You can find my address, coachcooper@chadecooper.com. I don't hide it. You can find it on the website. Send me what you want to know about. Send me what content you want to have answers about, so we can put it into that library and serve people. Our goal is to make it so stupid affordable that we reach volume, and through that volume, we can serve volumes. So
it's so
tell me
great,
what you want to hear.
I love that, man. I love that so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Chaddy Cooper. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, and download. We are less than 3 months away from my goal of getting this in front of 1 million veterans before I turn 40 on May 9th of this year, 2025. Please, there's 19 million veterans in the United States. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm just trying to create awareness and be a resource for those veterans who are struggling in transition like I was. I'm genuinely here to be the guy I didn't have. And these conversations are so powerful. I know that they can change lives. So please help me accomplish that mission. Also, if you are a veteran, you're in the transition, you're tired of shitty Facebook groups, I have created a free community called The Stronghold. It's a member-driven community. There's no fluff. There's no bullshit. There's no random courses in there that I'm asking you to pay for. I will only put assets in there that you guys ask me for, kind of like what Chad's doing. What information do you want to know? I'll create those assets. It will live there forever. The one course that I think that you should all go look at is my philosophy on networking, because I'm pretty freaking good at it, and I think you can learn a lot. And I simplify it for you. So check out The Stronghold. You can get there through the website, thestrategicveteran.com/stronghold. Until next week, guys, we'll see you with another great episode, another amazing veteran coming on to teach us all the things not to do in transition and all the things to do on the other side of transition. Thank you again, Chad, for being here, and we'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.